A long time ago, there was a family of 3 sisters. They lived and worked in the fields together, but each was very different from the others. One was very tall, with silky hair and a yellow dress. Another was short, strong, and always wore a pale green shawl. The last was average in height and perhaps looks, but very giving in her nature. The stories are often different depending on who you ask. Some say that although they were loving, they struggled to work together, and the only way they became helpful was becoming the plants of the field they worked in. Others say that they were always strong and loving together, but they were separated by a boy that could speak to the plants and animals. As they became weaker and sadder, the boy brought them back together, and their bond was made even stronger. Someone claimed that they were born as plants, birthed from the body of the Divine Mother, the daughters of the Sky Woman, who was buried after she died in birth, but from her body, the crops that fed humanity were born. If you couldn't already tell, these are summaries of some of the known stories that we have of the 3 sisters, a type of companion crop developed by North American peoples. The crop included corn, squash, and beans planted in the same space together. These plants have beneficial traits independently, but become even more productive when planted together. In modern settings, they are only considered for smaller personal productions, but historically have been implemented in massive scales to feed the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois, the Seneca, and Mohawk tribes. The reason these plants work so well together is because they are so different from each other. The corn is tall and fast-growing with a very small canopy, but are very nutrient-greedy. Beans are very large producers that make their own nitrogen and place it in the soil, but they typically cannot support themselves to grow very tall. The squash are very short and very fast-growing, and they make a huge canopy very low to the ground. Normally this would choke out other plants, but because the corn and beans also grow very fast, the squash just kills all the weeds. The relationship between these plants has been very well understood by the Native Americans for hundreds of years. They have become the center point of stories, ceremonies, and myths because of the value they hold for the people. Many cultures have plants that were cultivated in very specific ways together to produce better quality. However, just because these plants were the center points of culture and valued does not mean that they were actually maintained to the modern day, nor was it fully understood why they should be planted together this way. Today I'm going to talk about the practice of companion planting and various beneficial plants for your garden. It is important to understand that this knowledge is not necessarily new, but that we now know more of the mechanics of why we used to do it before. Companion planting is a practice of planting different species together in close proximity to each other so they can offer clear and direct benefits to one another. Sometimes the benefit is only one-sided, with one plant offering more to the relationship, and in other cases, the benefit is usually mutual, with each plant enhancing the other's vigor. Even with these stated benefits, plants should go through a rotation on the plots they were planted in. This will prevent diseases and pests that thrive in the soil from coming back and wreaking havoc in the future. Before going into who likes who, it is important to know which plants are antagonistic to each other. Oftentimes, plants from the same family will be highly competitive with each other. Some studies show that root growth and overall biomass are significantly less, and that soil microbiomes and enzymatic activity are greatly reduced when plants of the same species are in the same space together. Additionally, plants that are stressed produce specific secondary metabolites that boost particular microbial growth, leading to a very limited biome. Even with very high nutrient availability in the soil, plants will still compete for light, making them focus on leaf growth and height over other possible desired effects of the plant. The plant family Solanaceae is a great example of this in a garden setup. This includes all varieties of peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, potatoes, and tobacco. Other examples include the Brassicaceae family. These can be placed much closer together without major complications, but still can be enhanced by intercropping. Plants in this group include arugula, all forms of cabbages, radishes, wasabi, sweet alyssum, mustards, and anything with a cress in the common name, and woad. All of these can share the same garden bed as long as there's significant space between them, and of course, the right companion plants that are included. All plants in the Solanaceae family benefit from the presence of common herbs around them: basil, lavender, parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, as well as many non-edible flowers such as marigolds, petunias, and zinnias. Peppers are the strange odd one out since they like the presence of tomatoes near them, but tomatoes don't really like them. Some ways you can get Solanaceae to be closer together is to place a row of garlics, onions, or chives between them. The compounds that are produced by these alliums are antifungal and antibacterial in the soil, and often repel pests like aphids as well. Additionally, they create somewhat of a root barrier, preventing the competitive chemical war in the soil. Moreover, depending on how you prune your plants, you can place lettuce varieties at the base of them. The lettuce in this case would be the only one benefiting from this configuration, as they get shade from the larger tomato or other Solanaceae plant, but gives nothing in return. However, you get more salad this way, so it's a win-win for you. Brassica plants such as bok choy, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, rutabaga, and turnip are a hard bunch to get along with. They release aggressive chemicals in the soil to deter any possible competition and are really greedy with nutrients, especially calcium. This makes it so they especially don't like each other. Although these can seem like major flaws at first, these traits make it a great part of a crop rotation or even as a neighboring plant. Some plants like beets have very different nutritional needs from broccoli and its ilk, meaning that there is no stress between them. In fact, beets can also add magnesium to the soil, meaning it's very similar to nitrogen-fixing beans from the first example of a micronutrient. Theoretically, this is also true for potatoes, but the allopathic relationship between them could still be a stressor. I say try that pair at your own risk, but it could still be fun to try. The same idea that works with lettuce and tomatoes can also work with brassicas. Lettuce, spinach, and chard love the shadiness that the big leafy bodies of kale, broccoli, cabbage, and the like make. Brassicas basically make the perfect overstory. There is always an odd one out, and just like peppers, radishes like their own kind for company. They like the shade cover that the other brassicas offer, and they're not as nutrient greedy as the rest of the family, so they can be planted along with other lettuces and at the base of other brassicas. Oddly enough, some plants have actually shown to have a benefit from the chemical warfare that brassicas release into the soil. Cereal crops like corn and rice show higher yields and quicker growth in seedlings when exposed to the specific alkaloids in small quantities. Oddly enough, tobacco was shown to have some benefit with some of the alkaloids, but still had reduced production and was harmed by many others, so it's still best to approach that pair with caution. Some other quick examples of companion plants are carrots and lettuce like to be next to each other and like vining squashes as long as it has a trellis above them. Strawberries and asparagus can share the same garden bed since they have different root zones and don't affect each other's photosynthesis. Sunflowers, sweet peas, tomatoes, or potatoes make a great trio with each other like the three sisters. The sunflowers act as pest control and a trellis, tomatoes or potatoes act as the ground cover for the moisture layer, and the peas are nitrogen fixing for the team. Nasturtium and cabbage cultivars make a great pair together, with nasturtium acting as a pest control and pollinator lure, while the cabbage types act as a cover for the soil pest control. And the last example I would like to share with you is this agroforestry development in Africa. Various nations across the continent have long-standing silviculture traditions.
A church, to be a church, should be enveloped by a forest. It should resemble the Garden of Eden.
There are several known 2,000-year-old food forests in Morocco and tree maintenance around temples and mosques that have been around for hundreds of years.
100 years ago, the highland was one big continuous forest. That big continuous forest has been eaten up by agriculture.
More recently, Kenya and Cameroon have studied companion planting relationships for higher crop yields. Simply by using acacia and tephorsia within crop rows, farmers have saw an increase in corn and okra harvests. Additionally, the acacia being planted made the maintenance of fruit trees like avocados and plums more possible without fertilizer. This greatly reduces the costs on the farmers. The reason for this effect is the same as adding beans and peas to your garden. These trees are nitrogen fixing. The large root base makes for the large area of effect of the soil, and the branches and leaves are pruned and thrown onto the ground, adding even more nitrogen everywhere in the garden system. There are so many more ways to intercrop and so many more plants to look at the relationships between, but I hope this works as a simple starter for any personal little garden system you have. Remember to always look elsewhere, grab some more data, and try some random things out and see what works. The worst that can happen is that you learn. Stay curious, and thank you for watching.